Hello again, you sick, twisted weather freaks, and welcome to another fun-filled, action-packed, and intellectually stimulating edition of This Week in Weather. I'm your host and meteorologist, DT, from WX Risk, located here in Central Virginia. The commander of chaos, the colonel of confusion, the captain of catastrophe. Let's talk about this week in weather. And here it's midnight, so we'll just get right into it and see what we have. A lot of information here coming at you, so let's take a look-see. First is a picture of my smiling face from Richmond, Virginia. As you can reach me by two emails, my Verizon, my Gmail, and then of course the Facebook page and the Twitter page. All right, we'll start at taking a look at the temperatures here. Last 7 days, last 14 days. The lower left is the last 7 days here, so you can see that most of the temperature anomalies, negative anomalies, have been east of the Rockies. That purple stuff, by the way, is 15 degrees, 20 degrees below normal. This is the last 14 days. You can see again the heart of the cold air. There was some cold air in the east, obviously, but you can see the heart of it was generally over the Midwest here, down towards the delta relative to normal. And again, minus 15 degrees. Some of this stuff here, the purple stuff, really quite impressive. If we focus just on the East Coast, we can see here again, this is the last 2 weeks, the temperature anomalies. The blue color is 4 to 6 degrees Fahrenheit below normal. The purple color is 6 to 8 degrees. And then once you get into the west of the Shenandoah Valley, many areas in the Ohio Valley region, Ohio, Kentucky, had temperatures 10 degrees or more below normal over the past 2 weeks. In terms of precipitation, well, again, the upper right corner map here is last 2 weeks. And it's been fairly dry, and that's not surprising. Obviously, when your flow is coming out of Canada like this, you're not going to get a lot of moisture. So there's been some moisture along the southeast coast, which has helped with the drought, as you can see, on the last 14 days, and then again here the last 7 days. But for the most part, much of the country has been pretty dry relative to normal, again, because of the cold November pattern. These are our normal temperatures to get you an idea of what is normal, what's not normal. This is the min temperatures on the left, the max temperatures on the right. So you can see that, most of the middle Atlantic, in case you're just focusing on our area, you can see 50s, the low 60s in North Carolina, and then, low 50s up to Pennsylvania, that sort of thing. But much of the Midwest here, the middle part of the country, max temperatures around 50 degrees, 50, 48, 52, 55, something like that. And then the min temperatures, generally 30s, not uncommon now, because we get, late November here, and that's daily temperatures are continuing to drop. Now, one thing that is important to notice here is the redevelopment of warm water in the El Nino regions. Now, officially, the El Nino is dead. There's not an El Nino going on. But if you look at the actual water conditions in the El Nino region along the equatorial Pacific, you'll see some really warm water. Now, the image on the upper left here, as you can see, this is as of November 13th. Look at the warm water here, 3 degrees centigrade above normal. Now, this is a 5-day mean as of November 13th. And look at this. Over the last 5 days, the mean. So this looks like a lot of warm water. So the question is being raised, is El Nino making a comeback here? And if we look at the actual graphs and data, okay, here's CDAS from Climate Prediction Center. You can see the clear trend since the early October has been going up like this. Now, this is still, got half a degree below, is below just at, 0.5 plus. So it's not at the El Nino threshold. And of course, it's got to be that way for several weeks. So we're not there yet, but the trend is there. It's an interesting trend. And this here is the folks from Australia. And look at the value here, 3.4. A little over that, just under 6/10 of a degree. Then it's beginning to drop off a little bit, but you can see it's also been rising here. Now, according to many of the climate models, this is not a big surprise. All right, the CFS last 2 weeks has constantly been showing a rise here in October and November. This bump here, it's constantly showing it. Now, the new one here from last or Friday, you can see that now showing it leveling off here. And staying just below the minimal threshold for El Nino for the heart of the winter season. This is the Australians. You see a little bump here, and then it levels off for the heart of the winter. Again, just under the minimal threshold criteria. So it's going to be close. Excuse me. This here is the European. This is from November 1st, and this one shows it quite nicely. You see how the European also picked up this spike in November, December right here, right? And then look what it does. Once they have to get to December, it drops back down into this area. So it's below the El Nino region. but all these models are showing the spike. So this spike, which is showing up, here and here, it's not really a surprise, but it is something you have to watch out for. So I just want to bring that to your attention. Okay. This here is the Sunday surface map. The upper left is some early Sunday morning. There's a coastal storm off the Carolina coast. There's the big high over Quebec, Canada. There's the high here in case you can't see it. There's the low. And then, of course, this Sunday afternoon, there's low booming out to sea. And the high is still here. Now, again, if we had cold air in place, Arctic air, this could have been snow, and if the low had come further north, but it didn't. But still, this is significant because this is the fifth coastal storm now since the second week of October, and that's a good sign for the winter. It means a lot of energy in the southern jet stream. So I do think it's generally a good sign for the winter if you like a lot of winter weather action here in the eastern United States. This here's the upper air map as of Sunday midday here, and this upper air feature, see this closed low? That's the coastal storm, right? And there's the big low over Newfoundland. So the high pressure area is centered right here. Okay, in the confluence zone where these heights are, all compacted like that. So there's the high pressure, there's the low pressure. There's another one here off of Baja, so look at this baby. And then a big ass high ridge right here, controlling most of the western United States. Now the thing to notice here is the pattern. This is not a cold pattern here. Look at the flow. The flow is this. Okay, there's nothing coming out of Canada here. This is all going like this. There's no way for this cold air to get in here. And if we look at the 850 temperatures, we'll see that quite nicely. This tells us that the cold air pattern for the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks is shot. It's pretty much over with. Look at all the really serious cold air. So this represents 850 millibar temperatures. So this is the rain snow line. So if we look at the black line here, so see this right along the white and the purple? That's the 850 zero line. So that's the rain snow line. You can see it's all up here. All the really serious cold stuff is up in here. These are anomalies. You can see these are quite warm relative to normal. And the only little bit of cold air left is in New England, a little bit. And after that, it's over and done with. So, like I said, it's the cold air shot that we've had the last 2-3 weeks is pretty much shot its bolt and is being used up here. Now, the coastal storm is still going to produce some freezing rain in New England. You can see that on the GFS here. This is valid for Monday night into Tuesday morning. And then again on Tuesday, it actually goes over to snow in the northern New England and into Montreal. The European model shows the same sort of thing. More snow in the Catskills, I think, and the Berkshires than what the GFS is showing. So I think the European maybe have a little more, and then big heavy ice and freezing rain in the Connecticut River valleys, eastern Vermont, and western New Hampshire. So what's interesting here is the more snow in the Catskills and the Adirondacks than what the GFS is showing. So we'll see if that actually develops. Don't be surprised if this actually happens. Okay, now this is the the GFS now for Wednesday night, Thursday morning. So important features here. First, we have a big upper low here over California, bringing those guys rain. Yay, they need it. And then another big upper low. This is the other coastal storm out to sea. But again, look at the flow here. The flow is amplified, but it's not bringing the cold air in. So you have our ridge here, and then it comes down this way underneath the California trough, and then goes over here. So there's nothing bringing the cold air southward. This goes like this. So this is all mild Pacific air coming in. This is all mild Pacific air here, and this is this is a mild pattern, and we can see that here we can see the next coastal system sliding off the coast Tuesday night. There's our California storm, the rain over Arizona, California, Nevada. Very important. You can see that on the upper left, and then the bottom right is Thursday, and again more precipitation in California and the southwestern states. Now the cold front, there is a reinforcing cold front. So here's our low right here. And we have a reinforcing cold front. Now this high here is sort of cold. It's got a nice north fetch here bringing the cold air in. It's not as cold as we have seen. This high here is off the Georgia coast, southwest wind, so the mid-Atlantic region should have a couple of nice days here, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe even Friday before the cold front arrives. Okay, and then as we go forward in time, now the cold front pushes on through. We can see that here on the GFS. This is now a Friday afternoon, and there's our trough in the jet stream on the upper left. You see this bend right here? There's our trough. You see that right there? Okay, and there's the cold front at the surface. See that? See how they match up? Isn't that cool? And you can see our ridge coming in this direction, bringing a lot of Pacific air. Huge upper low over Alaska. So look at these heights. Look how compacted they are. See how that's very, very, very strong winds coming in on the Pacific Ocean. So, and what that does is that smashes any ridge on the west coast of Canada, just knocks it flat. And it's just gone, and you lose your supply of cold air coming in. So there's the moderately cold high pressure here over Kansas, not a big deal. And the cold front comes in. This is Friday evening. So Friday, before the showers hit in New England and Pennsylvania, Virginia, North the Carolinas, and Georgia, should be pretty nice. Pretty nice day here, I think, on Thursday or Friday coming up. All right. These are the 850 temperatures for the next 5 days, and you can see a little bit of cool temperature is still lingering kind of on the East Coast, but that's it. The Ohio Valley is normal, and in the west of the Mississippi River, everybody is quite warm with the mild Pacific air over the next 5 days. All right, now we go into start looking at the 6 to 10 day. Now this in the upper left image here, let me shrink this one a little bit so you can see more what we're talking about here. This is the GFS valid for a Saturday night, Sunday. So the front is pushed on through, and then low pressure develops here on the second piece of energy in the jet stream. So this is coming down, okay, bringing some cold air with it. Now we have a little bit of ridge here, so we have some cold air coming southward, and there's low pressure here that forms. And the GFS, of course, takes us off the coast. You can see it right here. Okay, off the North Carolina coast and out to sea, because that's what the GFS always does, because the northern branch is always overdone on the GFS. You can see that. Now we do have a block over Greenland, so that's nice to see. We do have a negative NAO. You can see it right here. See that red blob over Greenland? That's a positive height anomaly. That is negative NAO. Okay. Now the west. Now let's look at the Pacific side. The Pacific side is messed up. We have no ridge on the west coast really to speak of, just that little bit sort of in British Columbia. But we have a lot of energy still coming in. They have a ridge here in the central Pacific Ocean. Look at these heights. Look at these lines here, all compacted, how strong they are. Very, very strong winds. A big upper low off of California. So again, this is the feature which is going to be coming in. After this passes off, this is what's coming in next. Now that's how the GFS handles it. The Ensemble shows the same sort of thing. You can see that most of the models have a low a little further north up the Carolina coast. If this is correct, there'd be more rain on next weekend on Saturday night, Sunday into Virginia, I think, and Maryland, in addition to the Carolinas. Now, the European is different. The European has two low pressure areas. The first one comes out to Kentucky and Tennessee on Saturday. Okay, and then it goes up into New England, and then there's a front here. Let me draw the map and you can see it. So this is the low pressure area here. See that? The warm front, here's the cold front. Now this low goes in this direction, so now the front is here, and the second low develops over North Carolina with significant rain on Sunday over the mid-Atlantic region. And the reason for that is because the European handles this system differently. As you can see, the northern branch is not nearly as strong as what we see here. This is the GFS. Let me clear this out. Yeah, this is the GFS. Let me go back to the GFS. You can compare it. This is the GFS map here, and then this is the European here. So the difference is, you see the big dark, see the purple and the greens over eastern Canada? That's much stronger negative anomalies on the GFS than what we see here on the European over eastern Canada. So the northern branch is not as strong. Both models have the block over Greenland, so both models are showing the negative NAO, so that's consistent, but big differences here. And as a result, the low pressure area comes further north. You have one low on the front, and then the front comes through, and the second low develops with this second piece of energy right here over Tennessee. And that's what happens. And you can see that the European Ensemble here in the lower right does show conglomeration of the primary low going up through Tennessee and Kentucky. Okay, now let me clear that out and move on to the next slide. So this is now day 9. What happens is, you remember we talked about all this energy coming in on the Pacific, on the both models, the GFS Ensemble, the European are showing it. All this energy, look at these lines compacted in here, a very strong Pacific jet. So what happens is, by the time we get to day 9, it carves out this enormous trough over the western United States. And that's a lot of potential significant snow for the Great Basin and the Rockies and so on and so forth. And cool temperatures for California, the west coast, the Rockies. But for the east coast, it's actually a warm-up. Now, the GFS Ensemble has this big trough here. The operational run has a major low pressure area over central Illinois, and then rain along the front, a little bit of snow on the back end. So in this sort of pattern, I don't know if this is correct or not. I mean, who the hell knows if this is right? Okay, it's day 8, day 9 for the GFS. But the point is, this is significant. That negative anomaly there is very important. And so there's going to be some sort of significant low pressure area in the plains of the Midwest here around right before Thanksgiving. So you want to keep that in mind. Now, the temperature anomalies, again, with this sort of pattern coming through, we do get cold behind this system, and there is some cold air, so we can see that here. Now, the GFS anomalies, surface temperature in the upper left, okay, half a degree, degree below normal, nothing spectacular, seasonal. For late November, that's pretty chilly. And then the bottom right is the European. Not quite as cold in the eastern U.S., but again, close to normal. Now, go further out in time. This now is the level looking at the 11 to 15 day. So this is November 29th in the upper left and the European in the bottom right. And only 12 excuse me, 12-hour difference. And the difference is quite profound here, unfortunately. The GFS has a big trough here over the western United States and then a ridge right here. So it's a mild pat on the East Coast, and then this is the where the cold and the precipitation is all out in here. Now the European is different. The European's got the mean trough here over the eastern United States. Now this is not a little bit of a negative anomaly here. Maybe both models do show negative NAO. So maybe the European is responding to that. Now, in this either case, the flow here is still, there's no ridging on the west coast of Canada, so there's no Arctic supply. It's all Pacific air. And so it's not a great looking pattern. It's not horrible. It's just not great. If you look at our surface temperatures 11 to 15 day, the GFS in the upper left, look at all the cold air over the western U.S. Both the European and the GFS has that. The main supply of the cold air is here, it's here, and here. Now the East Coast is not blowtorch. It's close to normal, but it's not getting the cold air. That's my point here. All right, now let's take a look at some of the teleconnections because that's kind of important here. Now this is the European, the teleconnections here, and this goes out to early December. So we're looking at the European Ensemble, and this is the first one here is the P&A pattern. So this is the West Coast Ridge, okay? Look what happens on the West Coast Ridge. It's neutral, oops, my marker, neutral, and then it goes negative. Trough on the west coast. That's not a good sign for winter weather lovers in the eastern United States. Now this is the EPO. This is when the ridge goes not only from the west coast but all the way up into Alaska and establishes a cross-polar flow. This is when the ridge goes into the Arctic region. So you're pulling Arctic air straight out of Canada. You want this to be negative. Okay, negative means a big ridge. Okay, and what happens? It's got a neutral here and then okay, it goes negative or close to neutral this way. Okay, early on. So that's not horrible. That's okay. And then, of course, neutral back by the time we get to the beginning of December. So it more or less neutral, slightly below neutral conditions, but not by much. Now, if we look at the EPS extended 45 day here, what happens is that we see that things worsen. The P&A goes negative, as you can see. Follow the green lines here in the first half of December, and the EPO goes positive, neutral here, and then positive after December 15th, which is what you'd not want to see. Remember, we said we want to see it negative. It goes positive here. That is a no ridge in Alaska, so there's no direct Arctic supply of cold air coming into from Western Canada into the U.S. So this is not what you want to see here on either one of these. So the Pacific does not look great here as we go into December on these extended models, teleconnections. Let's look at the Atlantic side. So we're looking at the Arctic Oscillation, the AO, and the North American Oscillation, or the Greenland Block, the NAO. Now, over the next 2 weeks, we can see that the Arctic Oscillation, as we know, is negative right now. And then look what happens. It goes towards neutral by the time we get to the end of November, beginning December. And the NAO, which as we saw was quite negative over the block over Greenland, that also goes by the end of the month to near neutral conditions. Well, again, which is not what you want to see if you like winter weather over the eastern U.S. and cold temperatures. Now, if we look at the extended stuff here, this is again the EPS, the Arctic Oscillation, the NAO. Look what happens here in mid-December. It goes strongly positive, and then the NAO, the Greenland Block, which is neutral here early December, also goes positive. Excuse me, in the middle and late, mid and late December potentially. So the Atlantic, which right now is pretty good with the Arctic oscillation being negative and the block over Greenland, collapses in early December and the pattern turns mild. That's what this is saying. Now, the MJO was supporting this a couple days ago. This is an experimental run of the MJO from a few days ago, and November 15th. And notice that these runs, this is all based on the CFS, so it's taking into phase 3 in early December and then phase 4 in mid-December. Now, what does that mean? What does that imply? Well, this is what it looks like. Phase 3 and phase 4 in December. Look at the blowtorch and temperatures here on the left hand side of these images. It's pretty warm. So that matches this and what this is telling. So a lot of people are somewhat pessimistic about December, especially the first half. Now, I understand what the reason to be pessimism, but something may be changing. Maybe. If we look at the new models, they're not showing that. We have the Canadian MJO, the Japanese in the upper right, and the European. Notice here that instead of going into phase 3 and 4, look what they're doing. They're going back into the neutral circle and curving back out to phase 7. Look what the Japanese model is doing. Staying in phase 1 goes neutral circle. Look at the European model. Goes to phase 2, then back into the neutral circle. Okay? All by the end of December. So that's different. That's not this. These two things are not the same. Not anymore. In fact, if we looked at the new one, the extended, look what the new one is doing. This was the old one, and this is the new extended MJO CFS. It doesn't go into phase 3 and 4 and 5 anymore. It curls into the neutral circle, and it looks like maybe it wants to come back out in phase 7 or phase 8. Maybe. Maybe we'll see. Which would turn the pattern back to being cold again in the second half of December. So it does look like the first half of December is going to warm up. The pattern's going to break down. And there could be some mild days here in the first 2 weeks of December, especially east of the Mississippi River. How mild, it's impossible to say. It could just be seasonally mild. It could be really warm. I don't know that yet. We don't know. That's subject for debate. But again, there is some reason to believe that the second half of December is going to turn substantially colder. But we'll have to see how this MJO plays out and whether the pattern responds to it or not. This is meteorologist DT from WX Risk. I'll catch you over on the Facebook page, the website, and on the Twitter page.